What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here, Cheesehead TV. Let's talk some football with Pete Dougherty from the Green Bay Press-Gazette. Pete, how the hell are you, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. The Packers landed the biggest offensive free agent probably out there. Well, pending free agent in Aaron Jones. So I'm feeling pretty good as a Packers fan. Did the signing of Jones surprise you?
Just a little bit, I don't know what you thought. I thought there was a pretty good chance they'd tag him. And if they thought that would lead to a bad scenario where he's not going to show up, he's not going to sign it, not going to show up till 10 games, whatever, they could always just decide to trade him before the draft and get the pick now rather than next year in compensatory free agency. So when they didn't tag him, I thought, oh man, I wonder if, that means they're just letting him walk. But they must have known they had a decent shot at re-signing him when they chose not to tag him. I mean, their signing up and suggests that.
Right.
But I was a little surprised. I mean, I don't think I was blown away because as our very astute Tom Silverstein said, in the he wrote right after that, when everybody else was saying it looks like Jones is gone, Tom wrote, they oftentimes sign guys at the 11th hour right before the start of free agency. And so that could be what's going on here. And he was right.
Absolutely. Do you think now we've heard about the Packers and Jones camp talking for about a year now, and obviously in that time period he switched agents. Do you think at some point he just got frustrated with not being able to get more out of the Packers, knowing he wanted to stay with the Packers, and went to a guy like Rosenhaus because he thought, okay, if there's a guy out there who's going to be able to get blood from this stone, it's going to be Drew. And then even Drew was like, no, this is just who the Packers are, and this is what you're going to get if you want to stay in Green Bay.
Yeah, and I do wonder, just kind of grapevine stuff, nothing super direct, but I wonder if he and his family thought the market was going to yield even more than it did. I mean, I don't believe the Drew Rosenhaus comment that he would have gotten better offers in free agency and he took this. This guy's a running back. He's got to take the best deal he can get right now because those careers are short. They only get 2 contracts, even the really good ones mostly. So I'm guessing Rosenhaus, went out, was talking, obviously you can't do it, but they were still doing it.
But everyone's doing it.
Right. Talking. Yeah. It's just instead of at the combine, it's over the telephone.
Exactly.
I'm guessing he found out that there weren't better offers out there. And for all we know, this might even have been the best offer. I thought the Packers got a great deal. I would have paid him. I don't know if the record is right in this. I would have paid him $17, $18 million bonus. They got 13.
Crazy.
I think they did really well. And if they get 2 really good years out of them, they'll have done great. If they get 1 really good year out of them, they'll have done okay.
I mean, I tend to agree in the sense that, obviously we need to see the contract. We need to see the real numbers, but just to retain him, what he means for the offense, both as a running back and as a receiver, I just think it's a no-brainer if you can bring him back, which obviously they could. Looking around at some of the other moves the Packers have made already as far as getting under the cap. Now they have until Wednesday. We're recording this Monday evening. There's still a few things they probably want to do, including extending Za'Darius. And I heard that you were on the radio today talking about a possible Devontae extension.
Yeah. Two things I want to say. First, I've really enjoyed your tweets about the Dylan Aaron Jones thing.
Right.
Because I just don't get it. They need 2 good backs. We saw that last year when they played Minnesota at Lambeau Field. Dylan was out with COVID. Jones had a calf injury. Jamal Williams is a really nice player, good guy to have in your team, all that. But he's not as good with the ball in his hands as Aaron Jones was. And Minnesota changed their game plan knowing Jones wasn't on the field. They double cover Adams all day, and they hold the top scoring team in the league to 22 points, which is almost 10 points below their regular average. So I don't get it. I mean, you got to have at least 2 good backs for this offense. Look what that did for Aaron Rodgers. He went from, 3 straight years of his numbers declining. He can't 14 anymore. He won an MVP playing a little differently. He can't run around and make
a lot differently than Mr. Get outside the pocket, make magic happen. That ain't
That's
him
a different guy.
Right.
That's a different guy.
Yep.
And he still can be obviously great at the, as good as anybody. Right. But running game really helps them. So those guys get hurt. They get hurt for games, where they're out for the rest of the game. They get hurt where they're done for weeks or even the season. You got to have more than one of them. So I completely get what they're doing there.
Agreed.
The Davante Adams thing was taken a little out of context because they were just asking me.
No, on Twitter? Get out of no, wait. You're telling me that what I read on Twitter wasn't actually what was said on the radio?
Yeah.
Come on now. Come on, Pete.
I know. I sound like a player. They took media. You can't trust.
Yeah, the tables are turned. Tables are turned, Dougherty.
Because basically what I said was, they've got all these moves that they probably have lined up. I would think Adams would be one they would do sooner rather than later. So I
totally agree.
I've been saying
that's the thing, though. I've been saying that for a while now too, as in the sense of I'd expect Za'Darius to get extended, and I'd expect Davante to get extended because it only makes sense. Those are your core players, and they can help you cap wise by reducing their cap number this season. Why wouldn't you do that?
And so I'm guessing they do those first before Rodgers, for instance, because it seems like they're only going to do what they have to, so they won't do Rodgers until they need all that space.
Yep.
So I just said, if I were a betting man, I'd bet on it getting done in the next week or two. And all of a sudden I see on Twitter where
your notifications are blowing up.
Pete Dougherty is reporting that.
It's always reporting. Well, because you cover the team in a professional capacity. So once you speak it into existence, Pete, that's where it goes.
I just wish people would remember I'm a columnist.
I know, right?
This is splitting hairs for everybody.
No, but it's true. It's true.
But I'm a columnist, not a reporter, so I talk opinion stuff. And so I was just an educated guess with no inside info. And all of a sudden, it was like I was out there saying, "Yeah, you can bank on this guy getting a deal done."
I've had coffee with Brian Gutekunst, and we were talking about an extension for Davante. I totally get that. I totally get it. Hey, you mentioned Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback who has played in Green Bay for a while now. And I know there was a lot of drama at the end of the season. Most of it produced out of nothing, but there's a little fire there behind that smoke. And regards to Rodgers wanting a quote unquote commitment from the Packers. Now, I think, and I would like to get your kind of thoughts on this and your ideas on this. I tend to think that is Rodgers not really rattling his saber, but he knows he's entering the portion of his contract where there is no more guaranteed money. And I think he wants some guaranteed money. And I do think it's that simple, but I know that the internet and various organizations, people, etc., have kind of made a cottage industry out of Aaron Rodgers versus the Packers. So it's been blown up into, something much more than that. But where do you fall as far as, do you think they will adjust Rodgers' contract? And what do you think that means if they do or do not?
Yeah, I pretty much completely agree with you. My only regret is it took me about 2 or 3 days to figure out that's what he was out there. I was a half step behind on that for like 2 or 3 days as far as what the probable thinking was. They're going to do something. Will they? I guess what you're saying is, will they give him guarantee him more than the money he's going to make this year to make him what's more likely than he shows up that he's going to be their guy next year too in 2020?
That's the great question, right?
And I don't know what you think. My guess is if I were them, I'd be more than willing to do it. I would want him as the quarterback. If I'm them, I'd want him as the quarterback the next 2 years. And if it takes giving him $30 million this year and spreading it out over, voidable years and all that, as opposed to $24 million or whatever, I'd be fine doing that. Will they? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I don't think they'll do a real extension. Just guessing.
I agree. Right.
I don't think they'll do a real extension where they add on real years and give him $50 million bonus or something.
Agreed.
I think they'll do something like that. But, if an extra $5 million to make him feel like it's a given he's coming back in 22, if I'm the Packers, I'm willing to do it if that's what he's looking for.
But that's the thing, too, because to make him feel whatever, okay, that's completely out of the realm of us possibly even knowing, right? We can't know his mind. We can't know what the Packers are thinking, etc. But we can kind of interpret what a possible adjustment, extension, whatever means. To me, it's kind of twofold in the sense that, you can give Rodgers some guarantees monetarily without kind of going all in on the fact of, okay, you are definitely going to be our starter in 2023, because you have to hedge your bets on Jordan Love, because that's the thing that has to play out in a way that is completely unknowable. Aaron Rodgers is probably going to play at a high level for at least 3 or 4 more years. I mean, I think that's a pretty safe bet. I'm not going to say it's going to happen, but it's a safe bet. But Jordan Love, that's a real X factor, especially because you saw absolutely nothing from the kid last year because there was no offseason, there was no training camp. So to me, they have to do something with Rodgers, if not just for perception-wise, but just to guard against what if Jordan Love isn't it?
Oh, yeah, this could go. Just think all the ways this could go. I mean, Love may never be their quarterback. It might be where Rodgers keeps playing great. Love shows pretty well in the next couple preseasons, and they trade Love. It could be Love shows really well. They feel good about it. They trade Rodgers before 23.
Right.
I don't think this is the way it'll go, but it could be Rodgers finishes his contract and walks and Love takes over. It could be, as you said, Love's no good, and they realize that at a certain point.
Right.
So they try to move him and keep going with Rodgers till, try to, as long as like Brady, and try to see if he can go as long as Brady.
So, like squeeze every bit out of him, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many ways that this could go, and I'm sure they have kind of a plan of, what they think is most likely. But this is fluid, and this could be, their thinking could be different 6 months from now than it is today, or a year from now than it is today. It's just a really fluid thing. There's, you can't plan that far ahead in this league. Players and things change too fast.
Now, speaking of planning ahead and things changing and the fluid nature of the league and the job, right? What do you think it means for Brian's kind of tenure in Green Bay if Jordan Love is a bust? I mean, that's a pretty significant pick that you have made as general manager. Supposedly, I would suspect, as you sold it to Murphy and company as this is the future guy, and then say he busts. You're on a 5-year contract. You're going into, at that point, probably next year or the year after, like year 4 and 5 of that deal. How tough is it for Murphy to then turn around and go, yeah, we're extending you if Love is a bust? Now, let's assume they keep winning. Like, I don't know about Super Bowls, but they keep winning a lot, right? If you're Murphy, do you then turn around and extend Gutekunst, knowing he swung and missed in a big way on the supposed future of the franchise?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's one I haven't thought about yet because I wasn't thinking.
Well, it's so far out. I know it's so we're just spitballing here, but
right. But if he had a 5-year deal, he's already done 3, right?
Exactly. That's what I mean. Like, so you would think that this is supposed to be Brian's guy.
Yeah, next year would be extension time.
You would think.
Good thing for him is they won't know yet.
Right.
So he'll probably get an extension as long as they're competing for championships like they have the last 2 years. Love won't be on the field, so
right. So it's like you're still shepherding the flock, and you're still the head. To me, it's just funny because you look at Ron had Brett, that was his guy. Ted had Aaron, that was his guy. Brian's winning a lot with Ted's guy.
Yeah.
You would think Jordan's supposed to be Brian's guy, but if Brian's guy, who, by the way, Brian at the quarterback position, his eye for talent, it's the jury's still out there. With the he liked Kaiser a lot, and then they traded for him, and I know it was a reclamation project, etc. And whatever else, like there's no there yet. So to me, that's the great mystery. That to me, that's kind of the big. If you're Murphy and you're looking at this, like, okay, yeah, you're winning a lot, but it's because you have Aaron Rodgers, right? You're winning a lot of games because you have one of the top quarterbacks in the league. So I don't know. It's a tricky proposition.
Yeah, and then going down the road, it will depend on how long Rodgers stays. And let's say they find out Love is he's not good enough.
Right.
And what does he do to replace the guy? He'd have to find somebody good fast. I mean,
well, that's the thing. And then
that's for sure.
You look at, you don't have to look much further than New England, who supposedly had their guy in Garoppolo, and then decided they didn't have their guy and traded him away. And yeah, they won a couple more championships after he left. But look at him last year. That's the future if you don't figure that out. Yeah. And I know this is so hypothetical. I'll swing it back. Let's get back to the here and now. we're looking at the free agency landscape after the signing of Aaron Jones. Obviously, we've heard, Corey Linsley just signed with the Chargers. His tenure in Green Bay is over. I don't think that's a surprise. I think they've been planning for that, etc. But do you think, going back to what Brian said at the podium last availability about if there's a guy out there, we can take one big swing, so to speak. Do you think that was Aaron Jones, or do you think there's still the possibility they might land someone, quote unquote, a big name, a big addition, somebody like, I don't even know. Like, to me, that would be Dalvin Tomlinson, who I don't think that they'll be able to afford, but a somewhat name free agent.
I think it's more the latter. I think Jones was probably baked into that comment. I mean,
right.
His cap number is he's probably going to get the minimum base salary, right? So $990, I think it is.
Right.
That's
a good point, right?
Of the numbers that Rosenhaus gave out, the one that is probably right is the $13 million bonus. The rest of it's probably inflated, but the $13 million bonus, I believe that. So that means, three and a quarter million plus $1 million, a little less than $1 million base salary. His cap number is probably only going to be a little over $4 million for 2021.
So you can work with that. That's a good point. That's a good point.
That's not bad at all. The question I have is whether they should go for the bigger swing,
right?
Or whether to try to sign 3 or 4 bargain guys. I mean, I think they need corners and defensive linemen, something fierce.
Big time. Yes.
I think they got a problem there, And so I would be thinking now maybe signing one really good corner, and that gets you, most of the way there, because then you
solves a lot. It solves. I would think it solves a lot.
But I'm thinking more. I wonder if they're better off trying to do more of the Ricky Wagner type,
right?
Signings, and the Kirksey type, and get 3 or 4 of those guys. It's an interesting question, and you might be able to get a tad higher quality guy for a tad cheaper this year than you would in most years,
right? Because of the cap situation around the league. That's a fair point.
So that's the question I have. I wonder if, because Gutekunst did make it sound like he talked about, if there's an expensive guy out there, they can still do it, and they can do it. And like Zadarius Smith's cap number, his first year was only like $7 million. So,
right.
It's not like that's prohibitive. So they can do it, but I just wonder if they're better off taking the other approach and going for trying to find 3 or 4 guys and hope you hit on a couple of them pretty good. And you kind of stopgap for a year as you're drafting and developing guys too, and go from there. But so that's what I'll be watching for is, do they just completely sit out this week and then start, picking through the rest of the guys and finding the guys that they like at the positions they need?
Well, it'll be fun if they do sit out this week, because Twitter will be a bastion of patience, and
they're not even trying to win.
No, clearly not. If they're not making noise in mid-March in free agency. I'm talking to Pete Dougherty, the Green Bay Press-Gazette. We're talking football. Pete, before I let you go, let me ask you this last final burning question. Do you think, obviously we don't know exactly what the offseason is going to look like. It sure feels like, and this is complete kind of guesswork on my part, but feels like we'll have a training camp, right? A regular camp. And people in the stands for games, etc. Do you think this is a team that is, I don't want to say Super Bowl or bust, because obviously they want to win a Super Bowl every year. There's no question about that. But do you feel like the hangover of the last 2 years, the switch at defensive coordinator, the reset of the roster, etc., is going to have this enough is enough. We're gonna maybe do some things that were previously uncharacteristic around the franchise to go win that Super Bowl? Or do you think it's steady as she goes? If David Bakhtiari doesn't get hurt in practice, we probably at least are in the Super Bowl. If not win it, etc. We're just going to kind of keep the ship headed in this direction. Where do you think along? And I'm not using the phrase all in, because I know that's the popular thing, but I do think you can, at the end of this offseason, probably look back and think and kind of discern what their thinking might have been.
I lean towards the maybe pushing things more than they have in the past. I mean, you throw in the quarterback's age, that's got to be a factor.
Right.
eventually his contract's going to come off their payroll, whether it's in 2023 or 22 or 24 or 5. So they'll have money to spend in other ways when Love is the quarterback or whoever's after Rodgers.
And right when the new TV money kicks in as well, you got to
right. So that's my guess. That's what my attitude would be. I mean, I think you do have to be careful about just going all in totally.
Right. Which is why I frame it that way, because I don't ever think they're going to be like Eagles back in the day, dream team, or you know what I mean. Like I don't think they're ever going to be like, let's try and buy a championship. But I do think for a guy in Brian who obviously worked under Ted for a really long time and saw Ted never really kind of stray from his set formula and then always kind of end up on the outside looking in after 2010. I just wonder if Brian kind of goes, okay, I'm sick of knocking on the door and I want to get in.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. I've got to believe Murphy feels the same way. 2 years, 2 championship games, played horrendous in one of them, did not play all that well in the other, and still could have won the thing if they hadn't gone 3-and-out twice in the early fourth quarter. So yeah, I've got to think that they're maybe feeling it a little more. I don't know it for a fact. No one over there has told me anything to that effect.
Oh no, yeah, right.
That would be my best guess is, and I think some of the things they're doing. Well, I guess we'll see just how far they're willing to do the contracts with Rodgers and these guys. We'll learn a lot from that.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, Pete, you're an absolute legend for joining me. Make sure you're catching Pete's stuff both in the local paper in the Green Bay area, the Green Bay Press-Gazette, and at PackersNews.com. Pete, you're a legend. Thanks a lot, man.